this episode, we're going to learn how to profile threat actors in a way that produces useful intelligence rather than stereotypes. And we're going to focus on motives and constraints because those are often the most decision-relevant parts of the picture. Beginners sometimes hear the phrase threat actor profiling and imagine it is about naming groups, collecting logos, or memorizing dramatic backstories. But those habits rarely help you decide what to do next. A good profile is a practical model of an adversary that helps you predict behavior, prioritize defenses, and interpret ambiguous signals. Motives explain what the actor wants, which shapes what they will target and how persistent they may be. Constraints explain what the actor cannot easily do, which shapes what they will avoid, what shortcuts they may take, and what mistakes they may make. When you learn to profile in this disciplined way, you become better at turning scattered observations into a coherent assessment without overclaiming certainty. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.Author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. The first essential step is to clarify what threat actor means in this context, because it does not always mean a famous named group. A threat actor can be an organized criminal group, a loose affiliate network, a state-sponsored team, an insider, or even an opportunistic individual who uses widely available tools. The important part is not the label. It is the behavior pattern and the relationship between capability, intent, and opportunity. Beginners often assume every serious threat is a highly skilled team, but many real intrusions are driven by actors who rely on known weaknesses, common credentials, and automation. Profiling helps you avoid exaggerating the adversary because exaggeration can lead to wasted effort and fear-based decisions. At the same time, profiling helps you avoid underestimating an adversary because it forces you to examine evidence, targeting, and persistence. A strong profile is balanced, evidence-driven, and tied to what matters for the decision you are supporting. Motives are one of the fastest ways to make a profile useful because motive shapes objectives, and objectives shape behavior. Financially motivated actors often prioritize speed and return on investment, which can lead them towards scalable techniques, broad targeting, and actions that produce direct value like extortion or theft. Politically motivated actors may prioritize influence, disruption, or intelligence collection, which can lead them towards stealth, long-term access, and careful targeting of sensitive information. Some actors are driven by personal goals, ideology, or status, which can produce unpredictable behavior but still often shows patterns in what they choose to attack and how they communicate. The key is not to guess motive based on vibes. The key is to infer motive from observable choices like target selection, timing, and the kind of value they attempt to extract. Even when motive is uncertain, stating plausible motives and explaining the evidence that supports each possibility is better than declaring one motive as fact. This kind of careful reasoning is exactly what intelligence work is meant to do. Constraints are just as important as motives, and they are often easier to overlook because people focus on what an actor can do rather than what they must work around. Constraints can be technical, like limited access to sophisticated exploit development, limited ability to maintain complex infrastructure, or dependence on publicly available tools. Constraints can be operational, like a need to move quickly, a need to avoid attention, or limited time windows where the actor can operate. Constraints can be organizational, like internal politics, resource limitations, or reliance on affiliates whose behavior is inconsistent. Constraints can also be environmental, like the target's geography, legal risks, or the defender's existing controls. When you identify constraints, you gain predictive power because constraints shape trade-offs, and trade-offs create patterns. An actor who cannot maintain stealth for long may choose quick smash-and-grab methods, while an actor who prioritizes long-term intelligence collection may invest in remaining quiet and blending into normal activity. Profiling becomes meaningful when you map motive to constraints and then infer likely behavior. A practical way to profile without getting lost is to focus on 3 questions that translate directly into defensive decisions. The first is what the actor is trying to achieve, because that reveals what assets are most at risk and what outcomes you should try to prevent. The second is how the actor tends to operate, because that reveals what signals might appear in telemetry and what defensive layers are most valuable. The third is what the actor avoids or struggles with, because that reveals where defenders can create friction and where detection might be more likely. These questions keep you from writing a profile that is just a biography and instead push you toward a profile that supports action. They also help you avoid busy work, because you do not need every possible detail. You need the details that change priorities. In exam terms, this is the difference between describing a threat and assessing its relevance. When you practice answering these three questions, you can separate high-value profiling from low-value trivia quickly. It is also important to understand that profiling is always probabilistic, not absolute, because adversaries adapt and evidence is rarely complete. A good profile is like a weather forecast. It uses the best available signals to estimate what is likely, not to guarantee what will happen. Beginners sometimes get uncomfortable with this uncertainty and either refuse to make an assessment or pretend the assessment is certain. Both extremes are unhelpful because decision-making requires some judgment, even when the data is imperfect. The responsible middle ground is to make a defensible assessment, state your confidence, and explain what would increase or decrease confidence. For example, you might assess that an intrusion pattern is consistent with a financially motivated actor because it prioritizes speed and extortion, but you might also note that similar techniques can be used by others. This approach helps stakeholders act without being misled. The exam will often reward answers that acknowledge uncertainty appropriately rather than answers that promise certainty without support. Profiling also becomes much more accurate when you separate identity from behavior, because identity can be tempting but misleading. Identity is the name or label people use for a group, while behavior is what is actually observed. Names can change, reporting can be wrong, and different actors can reuse similar tools, so identity-based conclusions can be fragile. Behavior-based profiling focuses on what can be supported by evidence, like targeting patterns, tactics, and operational choices. That does not mean identity is irrelevant. It means identity is an output that should be treated carefully, not a starting assumption. In many cases, you can produce useful intelligence without naming an actor at all, because you can still describe what is happening and what it implies for risk and defense. Beginners sometimes think naming is the point, but the point is decision support. If naming does not improve the decision, it is not essential to the profile. Another essential part of profiling is understanding that motives and constraints can vary within the same broad category of actor. Not every financially motivated actor behaves the same, and not every state-aligned actor has the same capabilities or patience. Some financially motivated groups are highly organized and careful, while others are chaotic and opportunistic. Some state-aligned actors are focused on long-term intelligence collection, while others may prioritize disruption or influence. Constraints also vary, because one actor may have reliable infrastructure and another may depend on unstable third-party services. This is why profiling should not rely on stereotypes like criminals are always noisy or state actors are always stealthy. Those shortcuts can cause mistakes because they push you toward assumptions rather than evidence. The better approach is to observe the specific pattern and build a profile that fits that pattern, even if it surprises you. That mindset keeps profiling grounded and reduces bias. A real-world focus also means recognizing that the most useful profiles are the ones that connect adversary behavior to your environment and your risk. A generic profile that describes an actor's history might be interesting, but it might not change what your organization should do. A useful profile highlights how the actor tends to gain access, what they prioritize after access, what data or systems they value, and what defensive controls can create the most friction. It also highlights where your environment is exposed, like whether you use a technology stack that the actor is known to target, or whether your business model makes you a likely victim. This connection to your environment is what turns profiling into intelligence rather than entertainment. It is also why the exam may ask you to interpret scenarios in terms of relevance and prioritization, not just recognition. When you build profiles that answer the question, "So what for the organization?" you are doing the work the exam is designed to test. One of the most common profiling pitfalls is overfitting, meaning you see one clue and jump to a very specific conclusion. For example, you might see a certain malware family and assume a specific named actor, even though many groups may use the same tools. where you might see a particular targeting pattern and assume a political motive, even though financial actors can also target critical services for extortion value. Overfitting feels satisfying because it creates a neat story, but it is dangerous because it increases the chance of being wrong in a way that misleads decisions. A better approach is to build a layered assessment where you weigh multiple signals and consider alternatives. If multiple independent signals align, your confidence increases, and if signals conflict, your confidence should decrease. This disciplined caution is not weakness, it is professionalism. In intelligence work, being precise about uncertainty is a form of accuracy. Another pitfall is confusing capability with intent, because an actor can be capable of many things but still choose not to do them. Capability describes what an actor could do, while intent describes what they are trying to do in this context. Many actors could theoretically deploy destructive actions, but they may choose extortion because it produces value with less risk. Many actors could steal large data sets, but they may choose to steal specific credentials because that supports lateral movement and persistence. When you profile effectively, you do not just list capabilities. You infer likely intent based on observed choices and motive. Constraints also interact with capability, because an actor might have some advanced capabilities but still be constrained by time, access, or operational risk. This is why profiling is about the relationship between these factors, not about any single factor alone. The exam will often reflect this by presenting answer options that confuse capability with likelihood, and your job is to choose what is supported by the scenario. To close, profiling threat actors in a way that matters is about building a useful model from evidence, not a dramatic story from assumptions. Motives tell you what the actor wants and help you anticipate objectives, while constraints tell you what the actor struggles with and help you anticipate trade-offs and patterns. Strategic, operational, and tactical intelligence all benefit from profiling, but the profile must be tailored to the decision and the audience, not stuffed with irrelevant detail. When you focus on behavior over identity, state confidence honestly, avoid stereotypes, and connect the profile to your environment and risk, your intelligence becomes decision-ready. This is the kind of disciplined thinking that helps you answer exam questions accurately, because you can separate what is possible from what is likely and what is interesting from what is relevant. With practice, you will be able to separate motives, constraints, and behavior patterns quickly, and that speed will come from clarity, not from shortcuts.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.